At first glance, it looks like any other penny. Dull copper, worn edges, the kind of coin most people wouldn't even bother to pick up if they saw it lying in the street. But that's exactly what makes it so dangerous to overlook. This unassuming little coin has a secret, one that turned pocket change into a life-changing fortune. The year 1982 was no ordinary year for the U.S. Mint. It was a year of transition, of mistakes, of history being made quietly behind the scenes. For decades, pennies had been struck from solid copper. But in 1982, copper prices soared so high that it cost more than a cent to make a 1-cent coin. The government panicked, and in their rush to change, a storm of chaos was unleashed inside the mint. Collectors call 1982 the year of the Great Split. That was the year the mint switched from 95% copper to a cheaper copper-plated zinc. But here's where the story gets interesting, because the transition wasn't clean. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even organized. The mint struck 7 different varieties of 1982 pennies, some in copper, some in zinc, some with small dates, some with large dates. And buried in that confusion, something slipped through the cracks that should never have existed. 1 penny. No mint mark. A detail so small you could miss it in the blink of an eye. Yet that missing mark turned it into one of the rarest Lincoln memorials since ever discovered. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man in the Midwest, sorting through a pile of change he had saved in a jar, noticed something odd about one of his 1982 pennies. It looked different. He couldn't place why, but when he took it to a local dealer, jaws dropped. It wasn't just any penny. It was a coin nobody believed should exist. And when the hammer fell at auction, the room went silent. This plain little penny, the kind you and I could have in our pocket right now, sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine that for a moment. A coin so ordinary it could have slipped through your hands at the grocery store, now commanding a price that could change your entire life. That's the magic of coins like this. They hide in plain sight. In 1982, the Philadelphia Mint struck pennies with no mint mark. Most of them were ordinary, but a handful were struck in the wrong metal or with the wrong die, creating a mismatch that makes them unique. Some are heavy copper, some are light zinc, and only the sharp-eyed collector can tell the difference. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Hold a 1982 penny in your hand. Feel its weight. If it's about 3.1 grams, it's copper. If it's around 2.5 grams, it's zinc. Now look closely at the date. Is it large or small? The small date variety is what every serious collector is chasing. The combination of no mint mark, small date, and copper composition, that's the holy grail. That's the one that can cross the threshold from pocket change to million-dollar treasure. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Collectors whisper about it at shows, scanning trays of pennies with scales and magnifying glasses, hoping to find just one. And every time one surfaces, the bidding war is fierce. Why? Because the supply is so small, and the demand is endless. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector, years later, spotted the same variety in a batch of wheat pennies he bought at a flea market. He paid a few dollars for the entire lot. When he tested the weights and examined the dates, there it was, a coin most people would have dismissed instantly. That coin alone paid off his mortgage. But here's the twist most people don't realize. Not every 1982 no mint mark penny is valuable. And that's where countless treasure hunters go wrong. They assume the date alone is enough. They spend years searching, not realizing the secret lies deeper. The weight, the size of the date, the metal hidden beneath the surface. These details are everything. Miss them, and you'll walk away with a penny worth 1 cent. Spot them, and you could be holding a ticket to $1 million. Collectors were shocked when PCGS, one of the world's leading grading services, confirmed the authenticity of the first known example. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a myth. It was real. And with that, the legend of the 1982 no-mint mark small date copper penny was born. Every day, coins from old collections are dumped into circulation. Banks roll them. Shops give them as change. Entire estates are sold off, and heirs unknowingly cash in jars of pennies, never realizing a fortune slipped through their fingers. The chance of finding one may be small, but the reward? Beyond imagination. Think about it. One coin. A penny. Worth more than most people's houses. Worth more than years of wages. And all because of a small mistake in a year of chaos. The story of this coin is more than just about money. It's about opportunity. It's about patience. It's about the thrill of discovery. Because every time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, every time you sort through a roll of pennies from the bank, you could be seconds away from the greatest find of your life. Collectors call it the miracle cent. And for good reason. It has turned ordinary people into legends. It has proven that history, luck, and knowledge can align in the palm of your hand. And it has inspired a generation of treasure hunters to look closer at the coins they once ignored. Weigh the coin. Copper pennies from 1982 weigh about 3.1 grams, while the zinc pennies weigh just 2.5. Step 2. Look at the date. The small date is trickier to see, but the 2 in the date has a sharp curve, and the 8 looks slimmer compared to the large date. Step 3. Confirm there's no mint mark under the date. If you've got all three, no mint mark, small date, copper weight, you've struck gold. Or rather, copper worth $1 million. Many people make the mistake of checking only one detail. They find a copper penny, but with a large date. Or a small date, but struck in zinc. Those aren't the ones that will change your life. Only the perfect combination holds the fortune. And here's the most haunting part of all. There are still some out there. Waiting. Hidden in jars, tucked in drawers, resting quietly in old coffee cans. Forgotten by their owners. Waiting for the day someone sharp enough, patient enough, curious enough, picks them up and sees what no one else noticed. This coin almost slipped through the cracks of history. A simple Lincoln penny from 1976, stamped with a tiny D for Denver. For years, it passed from hand to hand, treated as nothing more than pocket change. But what very few people realized is that hidden among these coins lies a version so rare, so extraordinary, that it has sold for staggering sums, up to $1.1 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny, the lowest denomination in American currency, suddenly transforming into a life-changing treasure. Collectors call it one of the most shocking stories in modern numismatics. And the truth behind it is even stranger than fiction. In 1976, America was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years of independence. Fireworks, parades, flags waving in every city. While the U.S. Mint was striking special quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins with dual-day designs to mark the occasion, the humble penny was left untouched. No flashy redesign, no commemorative look. Just Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the front and the memorial on the back. Ordinary, forgotten, overlooked. But inside the Denver Mint that year, something unexpected happened. A small number of 1976 Lincoln pennies left the presses with striking errors, off-center strikes, double dies, even rare planchet mistakes. These minting flaws, invisible to the untrained eye, would later send shockwaves through the coin world. Because in the right condition, these coins aren't just worth a few hundred or a few thousand, but hundreds of thousands, even reaching the $1 million mark. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were scrambling to confirm. And ordinary Americans, digging through their drawers and jars of change, suddenly had hope that the most unassuming penny could be their golden ticket. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a prestigious auction, one of these 1976 pennies in pristine condition, shimmering red luster, sharp strike, nearly flawless preservation, crossed the block. Bidding started modestly, but then, like a spark catching fire, the numbers shot higher and higher. $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. And still, the bidders refused to back down. When the hammer finally fell, the final price was whispered across the room like a ghostly secret: over $1 million for a single penny. This was no rumor. This was no myth. It was a collector's dream brought to life. Why would a coin most people overlook fetch such unimaginable wealth? The answer lies in the details. Details most people miss until it's too late. Look closely at a 1976 penny. The Denver D mint mark should sit neatly beneath the date. But sometimes, a mispunch leaves it tilted, doubled, or misplaced. That small irregularity can turn a common coin into a legendary rarity. And then, there are double-die obverse strikes, where Lincoln's portrait or the date itself appears blurred, doubled, or distorted. To a casual spender, it looks like a worn coin. To a collector, it's $1 million miracle. Condition is everything. Pennies pulled fresh from circulation in 1976 may have dulled, scratched, or lost their shine. But a handful that were set aside, protected, untouched, have survived in gem mint state. These are the coins that dealers fight over. These are the coins that make headlines. One man's pocket change became a fortune when he discovered his 1976 penny wasn't just an ordinary strike. It bore a doubling so sharp, so undeniable, that grading experts certified it as one of the rarest varieties known. He had been about to spend it at a corner store, but instead, it changed his life forever. These coins are still out there. In jars, in boxes, in old piggy banks, tucked away for decades by families who never imagined their small savings could be worth more than $1 million. First, the mint mark. If the D beneath the 1976 date appears doubled, misplaced, or oddly shaped, don't spend that coin. Second, study the date itself. Doubling in the 1 or 6 of 1976 can signal a rare double-die error. Third, check Lincoln's profile. If the features of his face, beard, or coat appear ghosted or doubled, you may have stumbled upon a fortune. Finally, condition. If the penny shines with original copper luster, free of scratches, spots, or discoloration, it could be a high-grade gem, the type that commands staggering prices at auction. Collectors were shocked when news spread that one of these coins crossed the $1 million threshold. Dealers are still rushing to authenticate every 1976 penny that comes through their hands. And every ordinary American who has ever tossed a penny aside now wonders, could mine be the one? This is more than a story of a coin. It's a story of possibility. Of how the smallest, most overlooked object in your life could hold unimaginable value. A reminder that treasure doesn't always glitter in gold or silver. Sometimes, it hides in plain copper. So the next time you spot a 1976 penny with a tiny D beneath the date, don't dismiss it. Don't let it slip back into circulation. Examine it. Study it. Because within that small circle of copper may lie your $1 million miracle. And here's the truth that should stop you cold. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a dusty jar of pennies. But when collectors realized what it truly was, it shocked the entire numismatic world. A simple 1951 Lincoln wheat penny, no mint mark, that looks just like the billions of others, turned out to be worth up to $1.2 million. Back in 1951, America was recovering from the Second World War, and pennies were being minted by the hundreds of millions. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck coins without a mint mark, which is why the 1951 no-mint mark penny exists in such vast numbers. Most people who held them never gave them a second thought. They were spent on candy, gum, or newspapers, and then forgotten forever. But among those countless coins, a few carry secrets that make them worth a fortune. And here's where the story takes a dramatic turn, because not all 1951 pennies were struck the same. A small number were minted with unusual die errors, double details, or struck on the wrong planchets. These errors, invisible to the untrained eye, are the very reasons that a coin you might dismiss as pocket change can actually command a price that leaves even seasoned collectors speechless. But what happened next stunned everyone. In recent years, one of these seemingly common 1951 pennies surfaced at auction. Collectors couldn't believe it when the hammer fell. The final bid reached into the hundreds of thousands. And whispers spread that an even rarer specimen, in pristine condition, could be worth more than $1 million. Dealers began racing to find survivors. Ordinary people searched through their drawers and coffee cans, and the legend of the 1951 penny grew louder. Now here's the part that makes hearts race. Imagine pulling out an old jar of change from your garage, running your finger through a pile of dull copper coins, and suddenly spotting the date, 1951. At first, you think nothing of it. But then you flip it over, see the wheat stalks, and realize you're holding history in your hands. The thought flashes through your mind. Could this be the one? Could this be the penny that changes everything? Collectors were shocked to learn that certain varieties of the 1951 penny, especially those with doubling on the obverse or reverse, or coins struck in near-perfect condition graded MS67 or higher, are valued in the hundreds of thousands. And when word spread of a perfect specimen reaching million-dollar potential, the coin world erupted. Here's the chilling truth. The vast majority of 1951 pennies were spent into circulation, worn down by decades of use. Finding one in crisp, untouched condition is nearly impossible. Combine that with rare minting mistakes, and you have a recipe for one of the most sought-after coins in American history. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On some coins, you'll notice doubling in the letters of Liberty or In God We Trust. Others may show faint die cracks, off-center strikes, or unusual coloration due to planchet errors. Each of these quirks elevates the value dramatically. But here's the catch. Unless you know what to look for, you'd never spot it. One man's pocket change became a miracle. He nearly spent his 1951 penny on a cup of coffee, but decided to have it checked first. To his disbelief, it graded out as a near-perfect uncirculated error coin. Collectors fought for it at auction, and it sold for life-changing money. His story lit a fire in the coin community, because if he could find one, anyone could. And that's why people are still searching. Dealers are rushing to buy up old collections, treasure hunters are emptying drawers, and families are opening dusty cigar boxes left behind by grandparents. Every 1951 penny is being examined, because the chance of discovering $1 million treasure is very real. But what happened when the news spread was even more shocking. Reports began to surface of ordinary folks cashing in their old wheat pennies for staggering amounts. Stories of $10,000 fines, $100,000 sales, and still, rumors of the elusive $1 million 1951 penny kept the dream alive. Imagine the emotional roller coaster. You find one coin, worth more than your car, maybe even your house. That little copper disc, the size of your thumbnail, suddenly becomes your ticket to a new life. Collectors describe the moment of discovery as surreal, almost unbelievable. And that's what makes this story so gripping, because it could happen to anyone. But before you rush to sell, you need to know exactly how to identify this coin. First, look at the date, 1951. If there is no mint mark below the date, it was struck in Philadelphia. Then examine the coin closely. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the lettering and numbers. Doubling on the date or the words, "In God we trust," could mean you've struck gold. Also, check the wheat stalks on the reverse side for unusual marks or misalignments. Finally, condition is everything. A penny that looks brand new, with no scratches or wear, could push its value from hundreds to hundreds of thousands. But here's the danger most people miss. Many coins from 1951 look similar, but are worn out from circulation. These are worth only a few cents, maybe $1 or $2. Don't confuse them with the rare gems. The difference between a common penny and $1 million treasure lies in the details, the sharpness of the strike, the errors in the design, the untouched condition. Miss these clues, and you could accidentally give away a fortune. Have you looked in your drawers, your old piggy banks, your family's forgotten coin jars? Because the 1951 no-mint mark wheat penny worth up to $1.2 million might not just be a story from the past. It could be sitting in your home right now, waiting to be discovered. And that is the breathtaking truth. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it finally surfaced, it shocked the coin world by being worth nearly $1.3 million. And here's the chilling part. It looked like any ordinary penny. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that seems so plain, so common, so forgettable, yet hidden within its copper surface is a secret that could change your life forever. The 1941 no-mint mark wheat Lincoln penny is one of those secrets. A simple coin that could have slipped through millions of hands unnoticed. But for those who spot the truth, it's a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Now think about it. 1941, a year when the world was at war. Families were rationing, young men were leaving for battle, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies just to keep the economy moving. No one could have imagined that inside those billions, a rare handful carried mysteries that today make them worth more than gold, more than diamonds, worth over $1 million. But here's the twist. Most people see the date, 1941, and toss the penny aside. No mint mark? Too common. Not worth a second glance. That's what most people think. But that's also why these treasures stay hidden, buried in old jars, locked in dusty drawers, passed down through generations without anyone realizing they hold a life-changing secret. Collectors were stunned when one of these seemingly ordinary 1941 no-mint mark wheat pennies crossed the auction block. The bids climbed higher, faster, louder, until jaws dropped as it broke past the $1 million mark. A penny, a single cent, worth $1.3 million. Dealers rushed to find more. Collectors scoured their hoards. Ordinary people ran to check their change. That's where the story gets even stranger. You see, the Philadelphia Mint, where the no-mint mark coins were made, was under enormous pressure in 1941. Millions of coins struck every single day. Mistakes were inevitable. And those mistakes, those tiny slips of the die, the cracks in the metal, the doubled images, the off-center strikes, are what transformed ordinary pennies into priceless treasures. And here's the detail that most people miss. Some 1941 no-mint mark wheat pennies show dramatic doubling on the date and the lettering. Look closely, and you'll see the numbers appear almost doubled, a ghost-like shadow etched into the copper. That doubling was never supposed to happen. But when it did, it created a variety so rare, so coveted, that collectors will pay fortunes just to own one dot, but that's not all. Another variety emerged, struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a 1941 penny, but instead of being copper, it was mistakenly struck on a dime silver blank. These errors slipped past inspectors unnoticed, entered circulation, and disappeared into the pockets of everyday Americans. Decades later, when one is finally discovered, its rarity commands staggering sums. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector stumbled upon one of these rare 1941 no-mint mark wheat pennies in an inherited collection. At first glance, it looked like pocket change. But under the lens of a magnifier, the doubling jumped out like lightning. The discovery set off a storm, dealers whispering, auctions buzzing, and collectors desperate to find their own. That single penny, rescued from obscurity, sold for a jaw-dropping price. The kind of price that could pay off a house, change a family's fortune, rewrite a life story. And here's the part that should make your heart race. These coins are still out there. Not locked in museums. Not all in private vaults. Some are hiding in coin jars, in old coffee cans, in dusty attics across America. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yours could too. Collectors whisper about the incredible condition rarities. Those 1941 no-mint mark wheat pennies preserved in nearly flawless state. A coin graded at the highest level, gleaming as if it were struck yesterday, has the power to cross that $1 million line. But even circulated examples with rare errors can be worth thousands. The key is knowing exactly what to look for. So let's slow down and reveal the secret. If you're holding a 1941 penny, here's how to know if it's one of the legendary treasures. First, flip it over and study the date. Look closely at the numbers. Do you see shadows, doubling, extra lines? That could mean you're holding a double die variety. Next, check the edges. Is the coin off-center, misaligned, or oddly struck? That error could mean massive value. Then, weigh it. A normal 1941 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. But if yours is lighter, or struck on a different metal planchet, you could be staring at one of the rarest mistakes in U.S. history. Collectors were shocked when an ordinary-looking coin sold for over $1 million simply because it was in nearly perfect condition. That's the beauty and the danger of dismissing old pennies. Most people throw them aside. But those who know the signs, those who take a second look, are the ones who find life-changing treasures. How many times has a coin slipped through your fingers without you realizing the fortune you just spent? That is why every collector, every dreamer, every person who dares to look must pay attention to the 1941 no-mint mark penny. Because this isn't just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery. The idea that a tiny piece of copper from 1941, minted in a time of war, carried through decades, handled by countless strangers, could end up in your hands today, and that it could be worth over $1 million. And here's the truth most people don't realize. These coins don't announce themselves. They don't shine brighter or feel different. They blend in with every other penny. That's the real mystery. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to be the one who sees what others miss. So the next time you see a 1941 wheat penny without a mint mark, don't toss it aside. Hold it up. Study it carefully. Check the date, the lettering, the weight, the strike. Because hidden in that little coin might be a secret worth more than your wildest dreams. Imagine holding an ordinary 1944 Lincoln penny in your hand. Brown copper, worn edges, the face of Abraham Lincoln staring back at you. Nothing unusual at all. You'd probably spend it without a second thought. But what if I told you that one very specific version of this 1944 penny, hiding in plain sight, has stunned collectors and sold for prices no one thought possible? Over $1 million? It sounds unbelievable, almost like a fairy tale of fortune. But this is not just a story. It's a secret that has changed lives. You see, the year 1944 was no ordinary year for the U.S. Mint. America was in the middle of World War II. Copper and bronze, the very metals used to make pennies, were desperately needed for ammunition, shell casings, and military equipment. The mint scrambled to adapt. In 1943, to save copper for the war, the government made pennies out of steel coated with zinc. They looked silver, not brown. They rusted quickly. People hated them. But then in 1944, the mint went back to copper, melting down shell casings to produce billions of coins for circulation. And here's where the mystery begins. A handful of pennies from 1944 were never supposed to exist the way they do. Because while the men had switched back to copper, a few leftover steel planchets, thin blanks of metal, somehow slipped through the machines. These coins were struck with the 1944 design, producing a mistake so rare that only a small number were ever discovered. And every single one has turned the coin world upside down. Collectors call them the 1944 steel wheat pennies. At first glance, they look like the ordinary 1943 steel cent. But the date tells the truth, 1944. That tiny detail is why this penny isn't just a coin. It's a miracle of history worth over $1 million. But wait, here's where things get even stranger. Not every valuable 1944 penny is made of steel. Some copper pennies struck in 1944 have peculiar characteristics, minting errors, and doubled dies that have pushed their values through the roof. In fact, dealers have fought over these coins at auction houses, where ordinary-looking pennies spark bidding wars that left jaws on the floor. One man, sorting through a jar of wheat pennies left behind by his grandfather, almost gave away the fortune of a lifetime. Nestled among the common coins was a 1944 penny that didn't match the others. It looked normal, but its weight was slightly off. A coin dealer tested it, gasped, and told him the news. He was holding a $1 million rarity. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin went to auction, and the bids exploded. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. The room was electric. When the final hammer dropped, the 1944 penny had reached a price tag that most people would only dream of. A life-changing sum that turned an old family coin jar into a ticket to financial freedom. Collectors were left speechless. How could a single penny, worth 1 cent on its face, climb to over $1 million? The answer lies in scarcity, in error, and in the magic of history that you can actually hold in your hand. And here's the part that should make you lean in closer. You could own one without even realizing it. Most people don't know how to identify the difference. Most people see a brown 1944 penny, shrug, and toss it into change. But if you look closer, if you weigh it carefully, if you test its magnetic pull, you might uncover the hidden truth. Because the 1944 steel penny clings to a magnet. The copper version does not. One tiny test separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. A penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth $1 million. But don't stop there. Some 1944 copper pennies feature doubling in Lincoln's portrait, especially in the eye and date. Others have misaligned strikes or repunchment marks, creating varieties that collectors desperately seek. These may not reach $1 million, but they still bring thousands, enough to shock anyone who thought they were just looking at spare change. And yet, the steel version, that's the crown jewel. Only a handful of 1944 steel wheat pennies are known to exist today. Some struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark. Some from Denver. Some from San Francisco. Each one is a story of a mistake so unlikely that it became priceless. Each one has passed through the hands of collectors, dealers, and museums who guard them like treasures of gold. Collectors are rushing to check. Dealers are searching through every 1944 penny they can find. And when even one coin appears, the entire hobby trembles. This is not just money. It's history. It's mystery. It's the thrill of finding the impossible in the most ordinary place. And the truth is, anyone can find it.so. Here's what you need to do. If you find a 1944 wheat penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it. First, check its weight. A copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. A steel penny, the rare treasure, weighs about 2.7 grams. Next, test it with a magnet. If it sticks, you may have just uncovered a life-changing discovery. Don't clean it. Don't damage it. Protect it. Because the wrong touch can destroy thousands of dollars in value. Instead, take it to a trusted coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service who can authenticate it. This exact penny, born in a time of war, hidden for decades, mistaken for ordinary pocket change, has changed lives forever. The 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny, in its rarest steel form, has sold for over $1 million. That's right. A single penny, the kind that slips through our fingers every day, has become a miracle worth a fortune. So check your change. Look in your drawers. Search those old coin jars passed down through family. Because the next $1 million penny could be waiting for you right now. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it stunned collectors and sold for a life-changing fortune. A simple 1951 wheat penny, a coin most people wouldn't give a second glance, has become one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatic history. And today, I'm going to reveal why this little copper coin could be worth up to $1.9 million, and how to tell if one is hiding in your pocket change right now. At first glance, the 1951 wheat penny looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's face, the bold date of 1951, and a tiny D beneath it, marking Denver as its birthplace. Millions of these pennies rolled off the presses that year. People used them for groceries, bus rides, or saving up for a night out at the movies. Nobody thought twice about them. But hidden among the ordinary were a handful of mistakes, errors so rare, so unpredictable, that today they've turned ordinary cents into million-dollar miracles. But here's where the story takes a shocking twist. One collector, sorting through an old jar of change left by his grandfather, noticed something odd. The D mint mark beneath Lincoln's date looked off. It wasn't centered, it wasn't clear, it seemed doubled. He thought it was just damage from wear. But when experts placed that coin under magnification, they froze. This wasn't damage. This was a genuine minting error, a double die mint mark, struck in such a way that no two coins could ever be identical. What seemed worthless was suddenly priceless. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to verify. Auction houses placed their bets. And when that tiny copper coin finally crossed the auction block, it skyrocketed past every expectation. The final hammer dropped at nearly $2 million. The answer lies in a perfect storm of rarity, history, and obsession. The 1951 wheat penny belongs to the last era of truly collectible Lincoln wheat backs. After 1958, the wheat design vanished forever, replaced by the memorial reverse. That made every wheat penny feel like a time capsule. But the Denver Mint in 1951 wasn't immune to mistakes. Some planchets, the blank metal discs used for coins, slipped through with impurities. Some dies, the metal stamps that imprint the design, were misaligned or worn down. And every now and then, lightning struck, creating an error so unusual that decades later, it commands millions. Not all valuable errors are obvious. Some of the most expensive 1951 pennies look almost normal at first glance. Maybe the 1 in the date is doubled. Maybe Lincoln's eye appears shadowed. Maybe the wheat stalks on the reverse have faint doubling that only sharp eyes can catch. These tiny details transform pocket change into a fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When news of the $1 million sales spread, ordinary people began digging through their change jars, wallets, and drawers. Pawn shops saw lines of hopeful collectors carrying old penny rolls. Banks reported sudden requests for boxes of loose cents, all in hopes of finding the golden ticket. And unbelievably, more rare 1951 errors started surfacing. One was struck slightly off-center, with the rim showing a crescent of blank metal. Another had a filled D, where excess grease at the mint clogged the die, muting the mint mark entirely. Each discovery sent shockwaves through the collecting community, and each one sold for tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, and in rare cases, over $1 million. This was no longer just a coin. It was a treasure hunt. One man tossed his penny jar into a garage sale, thinking it was just scrap change. A buyer picked it up for a few dollars, only to find a near-perfect 1951 double die set inside. That single penny covered the cost of a house. One person's trash became another's ticket to wealth, and yet the mystery deepens. Because experts believe there are still dozens, maybe hundreds, of undiscovered 1951 wheat pennies with hidden errors waiting to be found. Each one could be resting quietly in an attic, a coin folder, or the back of a kitchen drawer. Now here's where you need to lean in, because this is the part that could change everything for you. If you're holding a 1951 penny, flip it over. Look carefully at the reverse. Do the wheat stalks appear crisp, or is there unusual shadowing or doubling? Examine the front. Focus on the date, 1951, and especially the D. Is it perfectly struck, or does it look doubled, filled, or misaligned? Even the tiniest irregularity could mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million. Condition is king. A rare error in poor shape might bring thousands. But that same error in pristine, uncirculated condition could soar into the 6-figure or 7-figure range. Collectors are obsessed with red wheat cents, those that still shine with their original copper luster. Combine that fiery color with a minting mistake, and you have a recipe for an unstoppable bidding war. There's one more variety of the 1951 wheat penny that sends chills down the spines of seasoned collectors. The overmint mark. On a few coins, the Denver D was mistakenly punched over an S from San Francisco. These D over S pennies are among the rarest known errors of the entire wheat series. And when one shows up at auction, the room falls silent. Everyone knows they're witnessing history. One of these error coins sold for enough to buy multiple cars. Another crossed into the realm of nearly $2 million. Think about that for a moment. A coin minted for 1 cent, slipped into circulation without fanfare, used for candy or newspapers, is now worth more than an entire lifetime's wages. Collectors call it a miracle. Dealers call it destiny. But for the person who finds it, it feels like magic. These coins are still out there, hidden, waiting. Every day, someone unknowingly spends a penny that could change their life forever. The question is, will you be the one to recognize it? So here's what to remember. Look for the 1951 wheat penny. Check the mint mark carefully. Watch for doubling, filled dies, or the legendary D over S. Examine the date and Lincoln's profile for doubling. Inspect the wheat stalks on the reverse. And never underestimate the power of condition. The brighter, sharper, and cleaner the coin, the more explosive its value. Because this isn't just history. This isn't just collecting. This is the thrill of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. This is the possibility of finding $1.9 million hiding in the palm of your hand. And if you think it can't happen to you, remember this. Every great coin discovery was made by someone who thought they were just looking at pocket change.